She wears many hats. She's on the radio. She's in the newspaper. Now one of those hats is helping I-73 come to life. Who is she? You'll meet her coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning with the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on Interstate 73 and the efforts to make it happen. And we're visiting with Debbie Harwell, the president of Adobe Palm Communications. Good morning, Debbie.
Hey, good morning to
Thanks
you.
so much
How
for
are
being
you?
with us this
Thank
morning.
you
I love
for
that
asking
pink.
me.
Wow.
It was my Easter outfit.
That is beautiful. So you had a big Easter this
you.
past weekend.
Had a big Easter this past weekend. Went up to Shelby, visited the grandchildren. You know, I've got two now, and I'm just loving it.
Do you have two, Debbie?
I have two.
You're
I have
kidding.
two. And for 29, you know.
My
I have a
God.
5-month-old, and then I have one that's 18 months older than that. And then we have all of David's grandchildren. We've got 4 of those. So
Oh,
we're just loaded with grandchildren now. We're loving it.
My God, this is big time for both of y'all.
It is. It's a good time in life. It's a good period in life now.
Debbie, you're
Everything's
feeling-
good.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're on the radio so much. We appreciate you coming over this morning. I don't know how the radio show's operating without you over there.
Well, you know, it gets to be a pretty long time over there, but I enjoy it. The radio station over there has been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. It's just like going and having coffee with friends, and we've made so many friends out in the community. You listen, don't you, Greg?
Well, I don't get to listen much in the morning. I should. Of course, I'm in here, obviously, in the morning, so it's difficult to tune in. I try to prep for guests like you. I'm just thrilled that you're
We have a lot of fun. We have a news talk show,
Right.
which is 99.5. It's
Okay.
Steve, Debbie, and Dave. And I've been there. That show's been going on for a little bit more than 10 years, and I've been substituting for 10 years.
Wow.
And been doing it full-time now for 3 years. Full-time being from 7, I'm on from 7 to 9.
Right. It is
A lot
so
of fun. But I
yeah.
keep up with the current events. It's really very interesting because I read the news anyhow. I watch the news programs anyhow, and I'd rather watch the news programs rather than something entertaining.
Sure.
And so it's not a job. It's just a lot of fun.
And of course, last week I think you were on all from the 5 to 9.
I was on from 6 till 10.
6 to 10.
6
Excuse
to
me.
10
That's
last
right.
week because Steve was on vacation.
Golly, which was nuts. So what's that like when you're normally doing a 7 to 9? You have to come in from 6 to 10.
It got to be a tiring day last week. One day last week we had I-73 public input meetings in Ainer. So first of all, I get up really early, like about 4:45, get ready, go to the radio station, do 4 hours of talking, get all my things ready to go over to the Ainer High School cafeteria and listen to the citizens over there talk about I-73 and how it may affect them. And
Sure.
then I get home late and then back up the next morning at 4:45. But you got to get it all in.
How do you
We
do
might
it,
miss
Debbie?
something,
Yeah, that's
Greg.
right. That's right. I know. I just don't know how you do it. Of course, Steve has been doing this for years.
He's been
and
doing
at
it
the
for
same
10,
That's right.
He's been doing it for 10 years here at the beach, and he did it for many years before that. We're very fortunate to have him, and it's been very interesting to have him there because we get all of the White House stories firsthand.
Right. All of his experiences in the White House.
Right.
As well as I'm sure he gets the inside track now.
Oh, sure. Yeah. He's still got a lot of contacts there, and sometimes we have one come on the studio to talk to us every once in a while.
Is that
It's
right?
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
And of course, Dave Priest, is it?
It's Dave Priest.
Who's been there for quite a while. How long has he been doing that with Steve and you?
He's been there about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And so he's an integral part. He's become more and more a part of the show. So
Yeah,
it's a pretty good balance. He's our very liberal partner on the show.
Is
and
that
Steve and I
right?
are much more conservative.
I think I saw y'all won the local radio show of the
We did.
year,
We did.
which is very exciting.
Yeah.
I encourage viewers
Appreciate
to
it.
visit localradioshowoftheyear.com, which is very exciting. And of course,
Appreciate the Myrtle Beach Herald,
oh yeah, the
Doing
Herald was thrilled about that.
all
of
the
course,
best of the years that you had. I mean, you have more best of the years than anybody in the Myrtle Beach Herald now.
It's
I mean,
insane.
You can look and see exactly where the best shopping is.
I
can
know.
find out where to go change my oil in the Myrtle Beach
That's
Herald
right,
now.
absolutely. Auto repair of the year, of course, mall of the year. I mean, there's some exciting places.
Yeah.
You know, each week as you look in the paper to see folks highlighting their best of the year. We've been very excited about that, Debbie. And of course, again, we want to talk about you getting that ball rolling so that thing would kick off eventually, and will hopefully be around for many, many years to come. But real quick. quick about yourself. Are you originally from the area?
I'm not. I'm from Shelby, North Carolina, but
Okay.
I've been in Myrtle Beach for about 25 years.
25 years.
25 years. I was transferred here. And we can start from the very beginning, but I was transferred by a movie studio here, actually,
Really?
to do some casting for some films coming up here. And I was working in the public relations department, working with some LA firms and some New York firms. And they kind of left me behind. I liked it, and I said, I'm not leaving. I think I'll stay here. And I did. That's been
Wow.
about 25 years ago.
Now, growing up in Shelby, had you ever visited the beach? Had you all come down here?
Oh,
Were
all
you
the
going
time. This was our beach. This is where we came to. I mean, in the early years, Mammy's Kitchen, when you would come
Right.
down in October, they would be all boarded up. There would be nobody around. It was so quiet. I heard the former mayor, Bob Grissom, say one time you could take a bowling ball and roll it right down the street and not hit a soul.
Wow.
But things have changed. Things
Yeah,
have changed.
definitely,
And with the
yeah.
onset of I-73, things will change more and much more rapidly.
I-73 is really going to happen, Debbie.
I-73 is going to happen. We'll be driving on it in 9.5 years, all the way from Michigan to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Wow, in less than a decade,
That's right.
folks will be able to hit the beach
That's right.
all the way from Detroit.
That's right. And I've already been up in North Carolina. They already have some sections already completed along 220. So it's going to happen.
That area around where 38 meets 501, you know, that big area which forever was always that little, you know, it would dead end at that stop sign, and you take a right to get on 501 if you were coming from I-95. That's really changed dramatically.
Everything is changing. That's because so much of the population of the United States is moving to the coastline. About 20% of the population of the United States is actually moving toward the coastlines, whether it be the western coastline or the eastern coastline.
I didn't know that.
And I think that I've seen a lot more of the Florida license plates in the Myrtle Beach area. And I believe that's because last season they saw so many hurricanes in the Florida area. So many of the older people thought, well, it's not very far to drive, you know, to go home. And so I could be halfway home because Myrtle Beach is exactly halfway between New York and Miami.
Right.
So it's a wise decision for him and them, and it doesn't rain every day in Myrtle Beach like
That's
it does
right.
in Florida.
Like it does down there. That's exactly right. I don't know.
We've been the best kept secret for so long, but no longer.
Yeah, folks are sure fine about the area. And, of course, as you know, the bulk of our viewers are in the PD and southeastern North Carolina. So a heck of a lot of those folks have either grown up going to Brunswick or New Hanover area beaches or coming down to Horry County, visiting the area here.
We've all seen a lot of changes. Both ways, good and bad.
Yes, Debbie. Of course, that moved 25 years ago to the Myrtle Beach area. And then what was it about the area that kept you here?
I loved it. I loved the beach. And I remember thinking, when I get older, when I get grown up,
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to go to the beach as much as I want to.
Every day. Yeah, yeah.
So finally, about 25 years ago, I came and I said, I'm not leaving.
That's great. Absolutely.
And I've loved every minute of it. It's been a wonderful experience, and I've loved everything that I've done here, and particularly starting the Myrtle Beach Herald.
Yes, let's talk about that a little bit. Share with viewers what that was like launching. I think I saw at the time it was the first paid newspaper in many years, started by an individual in the state of South Carolina. And of course, community newspapers are oftentimes the beginning of even daily papers. The Sun News, for instance, the daily of the Horry County and Georgetown and Brunswick County, kicked off by the merger of two weeklies.
Right. It's very difficult to start a newspaper. It's not an easy task. A lot of people think just throw it together and put a few ads in there and we'll be off and running. But once a week comes very soon.
Right.
You feel like just as soon as you get one done, another one comes. But we did not have a weekly in the Myrtle Beach area. And I had worked for a number of weeklies, a number of newspapers, and I had been the public relations director at Gardner Webb College in Bowling Springs for
Right.
5 years. I'd worked in public relations at the movie studio, and I had a good bit of background with newspapers, TV, and radio. I thought, there's no community newspaper here. I want to do that. But I wanted to do it on a smaller scale, so I thought, okay. And it was scary to begin with. I hired an employee, and I thought, okay, that means I have to pay them
gotta
every
do
week.
something. Yeah.
And so I had a layout and design person, a salesperson, and one reporter, and myself. So there was 4 of us that started a newspaper. And before I knew what happened, it just was sucked in by the community, and everybody was just so cooperative, and we were having so much fun with it. And we were featuring all of our friends and people that we knew, and it had a small town feel to it. And it was just a tremendous experience, and I've just been really thankful to you for taking over the Myrtle Beach Herald. And it's been a challenge, and it's a lot of work, and you've done very well with the combination of Fox and everything.
Sure. Well, I think about that aspect. I tell people that all the time with Emma Claire at 2 now. In 25 years or 30 years when she's my age, if she's interested, the great thing about a community paper is you have that ability. Even though every week comes very quickly, the operating costs and otherwise, it enables you to really be in a business that you can continue in perpetuity. I mean, you can really make a difference on a weekly basis.
You can. And you've made a lot of difference in the community, particularly with the Heart Association and many of the other community.
There's some great groups in this community, so many places to wrap around and to support, so many great charities that, whether it's we or other community papers or even the daily paper in the area that commits a lot, prints an amazing vehicle to really wrap around. And you're right, Debbie, there were things you told me about the paper that I would have never dreamed about. Obviously, that ability to touch and hold it, TV, this medium right here that we're in, folks can't, I mean, if they're on a great interview, they can't mail it to all their friends. They can't put it up on the refrigerator door or
they
TV
can't
spot
frame
even.
It and put it on the wall.
That's right. That's right. You've been in offices and seen articles framed and put on the wall. It's an amazing testament to the power of print.
It is. The power of print is also a part of history. And what you print in this newspaper is also, people look back 10 years and they say, well, what was going on 10 years ago on this particular project? I just got through with I-73. I have a company named Adobe Palm, and I've been contracted by I-73 to help them with their media and with their public relations, that type of thing.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to go back to 1990 on the I-73 project, and I found out how valuable newspapers were to let me know exactly what documents had been presented. I mean, it's a part of history, and so it solidifies everything that you think happened. You can go back and look and actually see if it did happen.
Share with viewers about setting up Adobe Palm originally. What prompted you to do that? And you are and were a registered lobbyist.
Well, what happened is, after I sold the newspaper, and I wanted to be able to do something, some kind of career change, and so I was in a relationship with Ripley's Aquarium.
Right.
And so Ripley's Entertainment out of Florida has some problems within the State House, and as you know through newspapers, you get to know all of the politicians and the leaders within the community. So I had a relationship with most of the politicians in our area in the State House. And so they asked me to solve some problems for them, and in order to do that, I had to register as a lobbyist. So that's what got me started into the lobbying business. And so going down to Columbia was an eye-opening experience to go down there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays and kind of live down there for a while, go through the meetings and see how laws are passed, and it was a very eye-opening experience. Basically, what it has led me to now is opening my firm, which we do, we have access to do lobbying, or we can do public relations, or produce videos, just about anything.
Oh, yeah. How'd you come up with the name Adobe Palm, Debbie?
Well, it was strange. It was strange. Actually, I had to have a corporation for something else, and the house I was living in was adobe, and it had palm trees around it, and we were thinking about naming the house, and I thought Adobe Palm, and so I just, made an LLC out of Adobe Palm. Well, when I started doing some of the state contracts, I had them do them by a company name, so I had a company, so I just used Adobe Palm. Well, everybody came to me and said, what is Adobe Palm? So I never changed it because I found out it was such an unusual name that people continuously said, what is that?
Yeah, sure.
What does that mean? And they remember it because it's different. It's not like, using Palmetto
Debbie
Communications.
Media.
Adobe Palm Communications is a little bit easier to set apart.
That's hilarious. That's a great reason for keeping
I
it.
left it because everybody asked the question, what is that?
That's great, like we just did. That's exactly right. You think about so many aspects. Of course, those early years, now you said when you sold the paper, you actually sold it, then got it back, and then sold it again. So you have gone through all the machinations, and it was tough for the folks who bought it from you to keep the thing going. I mean, as you say, that week comes around so quickly.
The week comes around quickly, and you have to have a dedication of working. I remember first starting the newspaper, and it was really a challenge. And I remember going to another weekly newspaper and saying, how long do I have to stay up all night long?
Right.
And he looked at me and he said, 5 years. For 5 years, I stayed up all night long.
Wow.
Along with Betty Moses.
Yes, yes, and she still does
for
it. Yeah.
5 years on Tuesday nights
Oh, my
to make
Lord.
sure that paper got done. And there were many times when it was 2 days instead of 1 day that we stayed up.
Wow.
Of course, that first edition, we stayed up for about 3 days without going to bed.
Yeah, what was that like, Debbie? The first
It was
one.
torture.
And that was back in 93, 94?
That was back in 1993.
Okay.
Is
yeah.
when we started the paper. The first edition came out the very first of 1994. And it was a real challenge because we were going through setting up the layout and design, going through how to do all the spell checks and
Right.
how everybody should turn in their articles, and we're going through time restraints. We're going through everything. And as we're putting it to bed, new things are happening, and we're wanting it to be as fresh as possible. So it got to be a long process.
Golly, Debbie.
But how rewarding and what fun.
Right.
It's fun to build a company.
You're right, absolutely. And to build something that makes such a dramatic difference in a community, whether it's the Loris Times or the North Myrtle Beach Times or the Coastal Observer or the Ori Independent, or in this
There's a place
instance,
for a community
the
newspaper.
Myrtle Beach Herald, absolutely.
Community newspaper is very much a friend to the community. If somebody's in need and comes to you, the newspaper usually tries to help you in some way. The community has a need.
You're right. And there's surely a need for a daily paper.
Oh,
And
definitely.
the Sun News serves Brunswick and Georgetown and Horry counties very well.
And
Got a huge market area.
sometimes they get so much criticism about maybe a spelling error or something like that, and I always tell everybody, remember, they researched that book. They wrote that book. They set that book up. They laid it out. They had it printed, and they distributed it all in 24 hours.
Right. That's a great
So
point. It is a full book every week.
We
Good
should
for
give a
you.
little room for
Yeah.
error there.
That's a great, good for you. I never thought about it that way. That's a very good point.
Well, it would be hard to publish a book all in one day, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what a daily newspaper does.
That's right. That's a good point. Whether in this market it's the Florence Morning News or the Robertsonian up in Lumberton, or of course the Sun News
Right.
here in our viewing area, they're the three dailies, and all of them are very different, and it is fascinating. Of course, how have you interfaced now, having sold the paper in kicking off Adobe Palm in a new, fresh light, and really put a dramatic focus on I-73? How do you interface with all the different mediums in the area to make sure that folks understand here in this area?
We use a lot of the computer communications, a lot
Okay.
of electronic communications now. Do a lot of mass emails
Right.
to groups and the media. Do a lot of interviews, do a lot of radio interviews, television interviews, newspaper. Newspapers, I usually set them up with somebody that's a spokesperson from the particular area that they're looking for, whether it be the project manager for I-73 or whether it be for another client. You know, I usually try to bring the client in to do the interview.
So, of course, there's a dramatic need. What's the big need for I-73? Folks still get here. Why do we really need an interstate? I mean, people have been coming. There's 12,
Have
13.
you ever tried to get here from Charlotte?
You know, I haven't made that trip from Charlotte. No, I've made it from Durham many times.
Well,
Yeah.
and I-73 will go closer to the Durham area.
Right.
But it's very difficult to get down here. We're the only resort in the United States that does not have an interstate highway. Not only do we need a way for people to get in, we need a way for people to get out
Oh,
during
yes.
hurricane evacuation.
Evacuations, yes.
And not only do we need to stimulate the growth, we can't recruit, we can't diversify our economy with different types of businesses until such time that we have an interstate coming here. The larger companies do not want to locate in an area where they don't have an interstate.
Right.
And so there's a lot of reasons for the interstates, particularly when you get into the Marion, Marlboro, Dillon, those counties where they are economically deprived. They need jobs. We hope that bringing I-73 through those areas will stimulate the economy and that those people will prosper from this highway.
So there's a lot of reasons why it's
There's
a
a lot
necessity,
of
not just for
reasons.
Myrtle Beach, but obviously all up and down and close to the state line.
Very much, and we very much want the tourists to come into Myrtle Beach, but just as much as we want I-73 for that reason, we want it to bring jobs to the Dillon, Marion, Marlboro counties.
Catherine Generette was with us on Tuesday, and she was talking about the Myrtle Beach area really driving the train for the state. I mean, you know, so much of the tourism dollars really have a dramatic impact in Columbia.
We do.
Of course, the impact of I-73, I mean, you know, we think about that idea that 13 or 14 million people already come here. Have you all begun to do projections if there was an interstate coming directly from Detroit that's built within the next decade, how that will impact the growth of the area?
We're about to go into that stage. Right now we're doing an economic impact study, which is a 3-year study, which is mandated by the federal government before you can actually build an interstate.
Okay.
So what we have done is we've gone in, we've mapped out places that an interstate can't go, such as where there's endangered species, where there is a historical district, that type of thing. And so it's been a process of elimination to get these potential corridors. Then we've gone back to get the public input to see if that will alter the corridors any. And then we will see how we're going to pay for this highway. If we're going to put, you know, if there needs to be tolling, you know, if there needs to be a gas tax, how much money we're going to get from the federal government, how much money can the state afford. That's the next step in the process of building the interstate.
And folks will pay even a little bit, whether it's toll or gas tax, either for access or to help provide more jobs for that part of the state. Of course, it is truly, so many remind others that aspect of it really having that long-term impact for the entire state and for the bi-state area. I mean, obviously for North and South Carolina.
It is. Those dollars that come in from I-73 will be spread out over the entire state. We'd like to think that we get the bulk of that money back, but we don't get as much of that money back as we actually should get back. But Interstate I-73 will impact the entire state, but particularly up in the areas where they have such high unemployment rates. We've got 20% unemployment rates in some of those counties. That's very high.
The biggest work ahead, how could a viewer be involved, Debbie, if a viewer was interested in either seeing I-73 happen? Obviously, a lot of folks don't want it near their home. Everyone is keep it away from me type mentality, and of course, that's indicative of any. Of course, yeah, keep it out of my neighborhood. What are some of the ways that a viewer could be involved to learn more? Could they get in touch with you, or?
They can get in touch with me if they'd like to know more at 692-3042.
Okay.
Or there's a couple of ways to find direct information. One is through the internet, through www.i73insc.com, or by calling a toll-free number 1-866-I73-INSC. And that is a number that has a recorder on it. You can record any comments on that hotline, or you can provide your comments in a typewritten manner on the internet.
Okay.
Or you can call me. I'll be glad to give anybody an update.
Great. 866-I73-NSC or INSC. Right. That's great. Or www.I73insc.com.
Right.
That's great. Tremendous avenues. And of course, for folks who want to learn more about the lobbying business and how you could have an impact, whether it's for their business interfacing with the government. Of course, this is a nonprofit, non-commercial show, but at the same time, the impact that you could have. Are you ever hired by charities or charitable groups?
I have, yes, actually. I have 2 clients that are nonprofit organizations. And what we do basically is communications with government, media, and public, and try to do the interface between all of them, because it's a little bit different than actually a regular public relations firm. And we've been very lucky in making many contacts in Columbia, making many friends, and knowing kind of how the system works in order to solve some problems.
You know, I think folks always want to know, Debbie, we're right, we just got about a minute left, you know, that aspect of founding a paper, let's say, founding the Herald. When you think back about all the stories and all the big things you were involved with over those many years, more than a decade, do any of them stick out in your mind that you just, you feel like everything was worth it, just the excitement of being involved with one story or a series of stories?
I knew when I was in the 11th grade that I wanted to be in the newspaper business, that I wanted to be a reporter. And the reason I decided that was because I couldn't make up my mind on anything else. And I thought, I can do everything if I go into the newspaper business and I'm a reporter. In the early days, I remember interviewing Roy Rogers. And to sit down with Roy Rogers and to talk with him. And, you know, through this whole experience, I've just met so many people. Even with the Myrtle Beach Herald, been able to go flying with the Golden Knights.
Wow.
It's just been a delight to be able to go and do things that the normal individual doesn't normally get to do. You have the opportunity to reach out. And whatever it is that I'm curious about, I figure that the general public is curious about. And that's what they want to know about.
Those are great words. I got to keep that in mind. Debbie, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks
Absolutely.
for taking care of the Myrtle Beach Herald, too.
And I-73, for you doing that for us. Thanks so much. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Debbie Harwell coming up next. Think about that progression from 11th grade, getting active in newspaper writing, the excitement of knowing that you can be a part of everything. Everything. You know, you think about what you want to focus on in college or in high school. You're thinking about what I want to do in college. I want to go into art history, or do I want to be a doctor or a lawyer? She knew she could do everything by being in the newspaper business. And to think it took that experience at Gardner-Webb, later on working with a film company, the excitement of arriving in Myrtle Beach and saying, I'm going to make this home, and making it home for the last 25 years. The excitement's the same when we think about the extension from Myrtle Beach to Michigan. It started already. We've got 28 miles done. Highway 22's ready and rolling. We've just got to make the rest of the trip all the way up to Michigan. It's going to happen. Give them a call, 866 I-73-INSC, or you can visit them online at www.I73insc.com. It's very exciting. The opportunities upon us. It's the largest construction project in the history of the state of South Carolina. It will have that impact for many years to come. Learn more about it. It'll have an impact on all of us. And learn more about the local newspaper. Visit them online.